Hi, my name is Lance Vernon with SunLife, and this is the SunLife Podcast. And here with me, I have Sean Vernon, one of the other owners of SunLife. We actually just came from a fantastic event yesterday. Brought all the fire, fantastic. Sean, any comments in terms of where we're at now?
Yeah, I mean, it's becoming surreal, right? I mean, not that long ago, I think we were all trying to figure out our own way, and we decided to come together. And we have some really uniquely talented people, and we decided to kind of join forces and see if we could do something special. And it's kind of crazy when you get excited about something and you have this kind of mission and this idea that you want to see happen, and then to be able to see that kind of manifest itself after a bunch of hard work and several years, right? SunLife's now been around for several years now, which is exciting to say, and we've always had profitable years, but this is obviously our best yet. And to look around a room and just see a lot of excited people who are hungry and motivated. And, I think one thing I was saying, people kept talking about the camaraderie and about the people that we have here. And it really just made me feel pretty good, right? Because I feel like the values that you and I have attract people with similar values, people who want to help people, people who want to get ahead, people who really feel rewarded when they help other people hit their goals, right? And that's, I think, how we are. We both are so passionate to see other people succeed that it's great that the people that we seem to find and that are attracted to us share that sentiment, and they want to see their people get to the next level, and watching our guys, promote people and get choked up and the whole 9 yards, and seeing how we've been able to financially change the course of some people's lives. I mean, it's fantastic, and I really feel like we have it more dialed in than ever. And yet, it's amazing how much we're still continuing to find
More growth,
areas that if we fix this area, we'll have this much growth, and we just have such a great team, and it sky's the limit,
Yeah, that's the power of proximity, right? When you have a lot of large, personalities with a lot of great talent, you put it all together, and all of a sudden you start to see some special things when everyone learns how to work together. And the unique thing about our family is all of us are entrepreneurs. We had our father, who obviously instilled it in us when we were young, an ophthalmologist that went through med school and uniquely kind of talked our other brother out of med school, because he said when going into it and he was deciding, do I go into med school or what should I do, Dad? And his recommendation is, hey, if you want to go to med school to be a doctor, that's great, but make sure you're doing it not for the money, but for the purpose of being a doctor, because that's your passion. Because he said everything is moving into a direction of going into the hospitals. So he says, who owns the hospital, a doctor or a businessman? And immediately with that one question, that weight that it carried, immediately Ian decided, I'm not doing that, and he wanted to go into business, and now has a successful point of sale company in the merchant service industry. And power of proximity, we all at one point were running separate businesses, and we just decided, why don't we just push it all together and just make it happen? And even though that we're all making a piece of something, we know that we're going to make a piece of something that's greater than anything we can do as an individual. And that is the power of proximity, and that's what everyone keeps joining into our culture, which is fire. Not that I'm being biased or anything, but all of our consultants are on pace or have already accomplished a six-figure income, because that is who they're around, right? They're adopting the leadership and the example of others that have made it. And I just have to give you a lot of thanks, because you are 12 years older than me. I say it all the time. I probably actually don't say it enough, but I'm so blessed to have you as my older brother, because you've paved the wave, or you have paved the way for all of our careers, especially mine, because you had 10 years experience at the time in a business that was very difficult, and you went through all of the learning lessons that you passed on to me when I went one semester in college and dropped out to go spring and summer for a reason, right? And I want you to kind of talk about that. If you can kind of rewind time a little bit and say, where did it begin? And how did this all kind of come about, just from that moment of you moving from California over to Jersey, and even before all that, just that initial step in that business that you were in?
Yeah, similar thing, right? Our dad really kind of molded us in a lot of ways, and I owe him, as the original. I feel like we were very lucky that we had such an entrepreneurial father, even though he became entrepreneurial a little bit later in life. Even though he owned a practice, I don't think he saw himself as a business owner. And then later on, I forget how he originally started getting into the personal development space, where he started to read these books, and just really lucky because he made me read them. He made me listen to tapes. He made me go up in my room and listen to Zig Ziglar. And, my friends would come over and he would tell them, oh, Sean's upstairs listening to some tapes. They're really good. And so my friends who were all punk rock and, whatever back in the days, right? Goth and punk rock. And all these people would come upstairs like, your dad says you're listening to something. What are you listening to? Zig Ziglar. And they would laugh and they'd be like, all right, well, see you later. And they would leave. And nobody ever said, oh, let me come sit with you and listen to this, tape from Zig Ziglar. And that's dating myself, by the way. They were actually audio tapes. The next part was he made me read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that was really an eye-opening book for me, because it was the first time I heard an alternative viewpoint to what you're always told, which is go to college, get a job, work your way up, make $30,000, like everything everybody was telling you. This went in a very different direction. And later on, when I did get out of college and I sat down for an interview for a sales position on straight commission, when the person talked to me about an opportunity to run an office and he showed me how it all worked, I remember thinking, this is a lot like Rich Dad Poor Dad. This just seems to really resonate with me as the same thing. And, came home ready to get to work. And my dad, our dad was super supportive about it, right? So my mom was not. Mom did not want me to do it. She wanted me to get the salary and everything else. And that was one of the only times, usually he just kind of went with whatever she said. But this time he said, let him do it. He should do a year of sales. He lives at home. If there's ever time to take a risk, easy way to do it. And, when I got out there and started doing it, I thought I'd be better than I was. But I just, people were telling me, keep going, you can do this. People around me, they just saw this potential in me that I didn't even see in myself. And, the owner of that office really took me under his wing, and I always owe him. Steve Cardenas used to be the Red Power Ranger actually in the show. Now he's going to all the Comic-Cons, coming to a town near you. But he took me under his wing, and he was a fantastic salesperson. And from after being out with him and my team leader and getting an opportunity to open my own office, I just had a passion for, I liked sales and I was good at it, but my real passion was building businesses and building teams. I really enjoyed helping people get from point A to point B, like taking a person who was eager and hungry to learn something and get them to a degree, get them to a level where they, like, beyond where they thought they could go, really. People who are coming in, I mean, we have a guy right now, and all I do is talk about him. It's like the thing that like means the most to me, and it warms my heart every time I think about it. It makes me realize that what we're doing is special. Is, we have this guy who told me, he's like, I thought if I just made $40,000 this year, if I could just make $40,000 doing this job, that would be life changing for me. And that guy is on track to be our first 7-figure earner, and I think that is a testament to what we're doing, and the fact that it's working for a lot of people, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, one thing that immediately you said that I want to kind of go back to for a second, which is it all started from reading a book and listening to personal development tapes. And I know for me, I was not in high school, even early stages of getting into the career of doing what it is we do. You as my first mentor. I just remember reading was something I used to tell myself I hated. And one thing that always stood out to me was how our father would say, have you ever heard of self-hypnosis? And I said, no. Now, by the way, that was very buzzword-like. I'm like, self-hypnosis. Now that sounds cool. I can hypnotize myself to do anything? What? Tell me how that works. And he says, your words carry power. So when you tell yourself, I hate reading, are you going to want to do the job of reading? And he says, what you need to do is tell yourself you love reading. And what you need to do is add the emotion of why you love to read. And it's because of the knowledge that I get. Knowledge is power. It's because of all the things that's going to separate me from everyone else that doesn't. The average CEO reads a book a week. The average individual reads less than one a year. So one big moment that I remember, I was told, read all the time, right? I fighted it at first, going through the learning lessons. And I remember going to a Chamber of Commerce meeting. The first one I went to a meeting like that when we were running a merchant processing business. And I remember at the time, I think I was 19 years old. And by that time, I was 1 year experience in doing what I did. And I became good after I was really, really bad. And when we sat in that, there was a networking session. After all the speeches were done, everyone gets up. There was this networking session. And I remember very vividly, and I tell this all the time, probably you don't even know what I'm referring to. And I just remember that you were networking. Now, I'm the 19-year-old kid. You're the one that was running the business. You were the one that, is paving the way, telling me everything. You were the one that, you were in the spotlight, 100% well-deserved, so much success in your career. And I remember as you were talking and networking with other people, you guys started talking about books. And you were saying, oh, yeah, it's like that book. And you began quoting it. And the person you were speaking to was like, oh, you read that book. Remember that section? And you guys were having these conversations. I'm sitting here third wheeling it because I'm sitting on the outside saying, I can't join this convo. And if I did, I would look like a fool because I didn't read these books. And it's kept going. And I kept thinking that this conversation would end and we would talk about something else. But after you went with one book, you then were like, oh yeah, have you read this book? And I'm sitting here, this conversation went on for like 20 minutes. And I just sat there and observed. And I said, there is such a knowledge gap, and it's so obvious why you have success in what it is you did, because you took the time to do all the reading and absorbed all the knowledge. And the one difference is you implemented all that knowledge. And that is when I first decided to say, I love reading. I am a reader. Not I want to be a reader. I am a reader. I love reading. Reading is what's going to give me the knowledge that's going to give me the skills that I need to succeed at life. And I started to talk to myself in a form of affirmations and self-hypnosis that then all of a sudden I picked up a book. And I remember it was How to Master the Art of Selling by Tom Hopkins. And that book had leveled up what I thought was already good and made me so much better. And I just remember, and I always just remember that. I don't know if you remember exactly what I'm referring to. We were in Philadelphia, and that was a big turning point in my personal growth for me to humble myself and to do the things that I didn't want to do to get the results that I wanted to have. Do you remember any of that?
Yeah, well, no, I don't remember the meeting.
Talk about a trip down memory lane,
yeah,
right?
No, I mean, I don't remember the Chamber of Commerce meeting, but I do remember. I mean, How to Master the Art of Selling was. I remember at the time I was recommending that book, so I'm glad you read it because to this day I always say that the section on tie downs is still the best.
Incredible.
No one else has ever really nailed it like that about how to use tie downs and the different ways you can use them. And that guy really does know his stuff, and it's definitely one of I think a lot of sales books I've read, I haven't been that impressed with. I feel like a lot of times there's like a huge section of sales books where the whole book is kind of like the gimmick is, hey, how do you do sales but not have to do the hard parts, right? Like how do you do sales but you don't have to cold call or knock on doors or do any of these things? You can have this special system that and to me, it should be hard. The fact that it's hard is the reason why people have the opportunity to be successful at it, right? I don't know, speaking of surgeons and doctors and stuff, I assume that being a brain surgeon is rather difficult. And I think that it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of studying to get to a place and then to be able to do it. You have to not only have to learn it, you have to be able to actually do it. So that's why they get paid a lot, right? It's a specialization, and they get paid a lot because it's an in-demand job, and people are willing to pay to have their brains fixed, or whatever it is, or parts fixed, or whatever. And with what we do, right, the entire economy, everything that we do is driven around sales, right? There's an old saying that if somebody gets laid off, it's because somebody else wasn't selling enough, and our entire economy is driven by how much you can sell. Doesn't matter what you do. You could be the best baker in the world, but if you can't sell your cakes, you're going out of business.
Can't attract the customers.
You have to be able to get people, And what we do and what I learned, when I was slugging away, going door to door all those years ago, was you could drop me off. I remember at one point just thinking, you could drop me off anywhere and I could make it happen, right? Didn't matter if it was a product, didn't matter if I had to figure out what the product was and start knocking on doors and selling it. It didn't matter. I mean, I realized, I'm like, I could go door to door and just say, hey, how's it going? And give my pitch and then just say, look, I need some help. Can I have some money? And I'm pretty sure that I would get hundreds of dollars by the end of the day. Like, I'm confident of that. I'm very confident that regardless what the product was, I knew that I could just get out there and generate income. And it took away a feeling of worry that I think a lot of people have, which is, this worry of, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to make money? What if the economy's bad? What if things, what if there's no jobs available? And I'm never worried about that because I always know that no matter what happens, I can generate income. I can go out and I can sell whatever it is that's in front of me, and I can figure out a way to create enough revenue to build a business, to be successful. And I think, we've proven that in the past. We've proven that a lot of times. We've built a lot of different businesses together.
If it was easy to make six figures, everyone would do it.
And it wouldn't be worth much.
You used to tell me that all the time. There's a reason why that they call it the top 1%, because 99% of people are not willing to do what it takes to make that level of income. And one thing that you said, which I want you to elaborate on, because it is such an important point. I always say, if you've ever heard of the saying, I can sell ice to an Eskimo. All that means is that person is super confident in themselves to be able to generate the income to make the sale and make it happen. And that level of confidence that you developed, how do you instill that into a new rep? How do you transfer that level of confidence into somebody that is new, that is trying to join this job and to try to make it happen?
I wish I had a cure-all for that. And I know that there are certain people who are not confident enough to even try, right? And we see that all the time. I'd say more people are afraid to get started. There are people who are so excited, but when it comes to finally doing it, they just can't overcome their fear. And, I think that part of training people and coaching people is to make sure that you are helping them build confidence, right? And not even just confidence in themselves, right? Because I think a lot of times people are given a lot of negative messaging about themselves, and I think that they start to perpetuate that, right? They say that 97% of your thoughts are regurgitated from the past, right? So if everybody's telling you you're not good enough, what are you doing? Oh, you're not going to be able to do this. People making fun of you, whatever it is, that starts to be the pattern of thoughts that stays with you, right? Think about a time that you've had where something negative happens and you carry it with you sometimes for years, depending on the size of it and the impact that it had on you. And I think that to undo that kind of stuff is not always easy, but I do think that just by being able to give people confidence, to praise, to tell people when they're doing, like, one thing I had to learn how to do was catch people doing things right. It's always very easy, right? I mean, you mentioned it the other day. We were talking about reviews and how much people are much more quick to write a bad review than a good one. You have to actually solicit good reviews. Did you enjoy it? Would you write a review? Right? But if they had a bad experience, you don't have to say, well, if you don't like it, write a review. They're going to go do it, right? It's a lot easier to get bad reviews than good reviews, right? And so I think that that's just the kind of natural way that we are. I think a lot of times we're your mind or your ego always, and you guys, anybody who's listening to this knows, if you ever pay attention to it, you tend to always have a problem with something. There's always a problem. There's always a problem with something that you have to solve, right? And so when you have that mentality all the time and you're always got this there's a problem mentality, then it's almost like the opposite of looking for the good things, right? Like the old Mr. Rogers quote, right? About look for the helpers, the people that are going in, right? Every time there's something bad happening, look around that there are all these great people coming to the rescue. There's always the good people that are there, even though something bad happened, and it's like, well, how often do people even think about that, right? People come, they go, what terrible thing happened? But they're not looking around like, look at all these people doing this amazing job to try to save this person or break into that building and put the fire out. No one ever's sitting there looking at that. They're just like, oh, look at the burning building. Oh my God, I hope somebody, they're looking at the bad stuff.
Yeah, so that immediately caused a thought in my mind as you're talking, which is how limiting beliefs get instilled in individuals and how that affects you moving forward in the rest of your career or the rest of your future, and how to try to break those limiting beliefs. And sometimes those negatives, and again, the brain can only focus on one thing at a time. That's why there's no such thing as called multitasking. It's called switch tasking. And sometimes these negatives that knock down your confidence is in the form of somebody that's a loved one that is actually trying to protect you. And that was something that had happened from extended family of ours as I was going through my career. You're still doing that thing. When are you going to go back to school? When are you going to get a real job? And that's how I was interpreting some of those messages, because they cared for my future, just like our mom cared for you having a salary, and they wanted to protect you because they're scared.
Right.
And a lot of times those limiting beliefs come from love of others that instill accidentally. It's like a posy neg. I love you so much, but here's the negatives. And all of a sudden it's whether or not you're ready. Are you listening to it, or you got earmuffs on, and are you willing to at least make the effort and make the attempts? Because you only live once. So if you're not willing to do it at least once, to say, hey, let me try it at least on my own. Let me fail forward. Let me actually put in the work before you tell me I can't do something. And I carried a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, which is at those Thanksgiving, dinners. I remember I said, oh, here it comes. And a lot of times those are from the older generation. And in our or in our situation, the older generation is our grandma, right? Grandma, grandpa going through, and that's not how they were brought up. They were brought up to go through pensions and to go through the way, get a job, stay there for 40 years. And as millennials and as things started turning, we were brought up a little different, and we had different parents. And the way that we got brought up, other people might be instilling limiting beliefs, but thankfully we had parents like ours that built so much confidence in ourselves, because we branded ourselves as Vernons. And that name meant something. And that confidence and that chip on our shoulder is a lot of times how we got through difficult times and difficult situations, and how we were competitive because we were proud individuals, which is a double-edged sword. But it definitely got us through a lot. And then from there, personal development took over, kill off the ego, all the rest of it. And then you build from there. But, as you were talking about it, it just immediately brought me back even more in terms of how limiting beliefs even get instilled into people.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I catch it myself all the time. And I think, for most people, it's just a matter of pay attention to your words, right? Like you had said earlier about self-hypnosis. Because a lot of times things are coming out out of your mouth, and you're not even cognizant, because you've been saying it so long. It was said to you. People are, it was said to you. You say it to yourself. We talk about the voice in your head, and how that voice, you think it's you. You think you're talking to yourself, but you don't need to talk to yourself. You're the one who's there. You're doing it. But there's that weird voice that's just kind of going off, and sometimes it has really negative messages from stuff that people told you in the past, or the idea to try to keep you safe, right? They try to stop you from doing it. And even just recently, I recognized something. My wife would come home and she would ask me how my day was going, and I would always say, oh, it was okay. That was a good day, because look, how do you, there were good things, there were bad things, I don't know, it was all right. How was your day, right? And then one day I realized when I said that, I'm thinking, wait a second, I'm alive, I'm healthy, it was a great day. Like, why do I never ever say great? Why do I find that I'm not saying that I had a great day, or how you doing? I'm doing great, right? There's always something to complain about. But what's interesting is, as much as I've really been on this kind of path for so many years, just that little shift, I've noticed that I feel better. I feel better all the time.
And how does that carry you through your work life?
It makes it great. I mean, it's really, I say it all the time. It's simple. People, every time somebody asks me, how are you doing? How's your day going? Going great. Thanks. How's yours?
Outstanding. Jesse Etzler, right?
Yeah, of course. Outstanding. So it's just by saying that, I've realized that I feel like just my general well-being, my general feeling is just more positive. Like it's like I'm making it a reality where now I do feel like everything's going great all the time.
And then there is something about that. When you feel that way, you attract the energy that you put out. Negative people attract negative people. Positive people will attract positive energy. And or overtake the negative energy, or just shun themselves away from and just separating yourself from it. And a lot of what you're saying is attitude of gratitude. When you first wake up every day, so often we always want more out of life and we're never satisfied, right? It's always has that mentality of wanting more, not being grateful for what we have until you experience other cultures. So a lot of the times you may not, most Americans, if they travel, our country is so large that if you travel, it's cheaper and there's so many different experiences you can get within our country that it's like, if I'm in the Northeast and I want to go on vacation, I don't have to go to another country. I can go to Florida. I can go to California, I can go to Arizona, I can go all these other warm climates. Even, if you go down to the all-inclusive in Mexico, you're still not exposed to the culture of Mexico by going to an all-inclusive where you're kind of in your own little world. And I remember going into countries like Cuba and seeing how other people live. And then all of a sudden your perspective on life completely changes. When we were on that tour bus, and there was this long line and everyone was in line. And, in America, I'm sitting here being like, wow, that store must be popping, something there. I mean, everyone's buying whatever that one has. And I had no idea. So I yelled up, I'm like, hey, what's that? Can we go there? And the guy goes, this is the beginning of the month. And everyone sits in line for their bag of rice and their carton of eggs that lasts them all month, no matter how big or small their family is. And I was just like, oh, wow. And perspective sank in. And one of the biggest takeaways about going to Cuba was not going to the all-inclusive and all that. The difference between a 4-star and a 5-star resort, was they both had spring mattresses. They both, 4-star meant that they had air conditioning. Nice. And 3-star means there was no air conditioning. And just walking through the country, you get to be exposed to what other people have that we are not exposed to ourselves because we're spoiled. And that is the one shift of waking up every single day, to your point, of having a mindset of attitude of gratitude and being like, today was incredible. I'm so fortunate for what I have. I'm so fortunate to have a family like ours that put us on that right path. I'm so fortunate for the internet that gives you the knowledge at your fingertips and you can walk around with a computer. I don't have to ever pull out a map again. Like, I can just say, where am I going? How do I get home? Right? There's so many things to be grateful for, but we're always looking for more. And that's just part of how society is. So before we ask for more from the world, one thing that we always do in SunLife is a lot of times on our weekly calls, we always start with an attitude of gratitude, but we'll be specific, right? What are you grateful for that you learned yesterday? Why are you grateful for having the opportunity of coming into an environment like this and being around other individuals? How is this different? Why are you grateful? And we are very specific. That really triggers and provokes thought. And once you actually be genuine about the question and you genuinely answer it, and you're in the habits of building a morning routine of writing out why am I grateful in specific subjects, whether that's relationships, experiences, what it is we do, how we live, you then now carry yourself differently throughout your day, and you stopped giving the negativity a voice.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Just to kind of speak on that as well. I think there's two parts to that. Number one is, I'm sure that even in Cuba, there were people smiling and happy people, right? They didn't have a lot, and yet they could still enjoy their lives and still be happy and still be positive, right? Whereas you could take a person in America, and if they had that same thing, there's a good possibility that they wouldn't appreciate. They would be miserable, right? It's like, Dad used to always say, it's easier to start with nothing, right? It's easier to start with nothing than to become nothing, right? So, when you think about it, right, anywhere you've gone, right, I've gone to some pretty depressed areas, in my career, and there are still tons of happy people. There's still kids playing, that still exists, and yet there are so many people who have so much and they're miserable, and it just goes to show you, like how the power of positive thinking, like, you don't have to be anything special to enjoy your life and to be happy, right? And I think that that's something that once you make that shift where you are positive, you are happy, you are a generally upbeat person, what you find, kind of like what you were saying, you start to attract people. People start to want you to be a part of what they're doing, right? You and I get offers a lot from people who are just like, hey, we want you to come work with us. Hey, we want you to, like, what are you doing? How do we work together? And it's like, well, I don't consider myself. I'm sure I'm relatively smart, but I don't think I'm like the smartest man in the world. I'm certainly not as like a Elon Musk brilliant type guy, but yet there's something to be said for this kind of law of attraction, that if you're putting out the right vibes, if you're always going for it, if you're always trying to be the best you can be, that I tend to find that no matter if you keep trying to get better, you can keep getting better. And that's one of the most wild things, is that after 20 years, I find that I can continue to improve. And the other part of that is right now, especially if you're living in America, but right now there's probably 7 billion people in the world. There's probably at least 2 billion people. There's probably at least 2 billion people that would trade places with you today. And that goes for anybody who's listening to this, right? Any one of our people. There's probably at least 2 billion people that would trade places with them today if they had that chance, no matter what you're going through.
I would actually say, even from a documentary that I watched from Bill Gates and their foundation, I think it's 3 billion people do not have clean water.
Yeah, there you go. So it sounds like, wow, 2 billion, but meanwhile I was off. I was probably undershooting.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's just clean water.
That's water, something we take. Sanitation, just having the ability, in terms of, again, just the way that they live, carrying buckets of water, and then the water is contaminated for where they have to go to the bathroom. There is so much to be grateful for.
It's crazy to think about it. Like the water that comes out of our sinks or bathrooms or whatever is cleaner water than some of these people have access to. And we take it for granted. We take it completely for granted.
Actually, it's funny. I have this thing about the news where I avoid watching the news because I do not want to be exposed to the negativity, so much so that people inform me and say, have you seen this? And I'm like, no, but now that you're telling me about it. And then I look up specifically big news that I feel like I need to learn, because everything in society pushes negativity, so much so because they know that's how ratings go up. They know that negative news is what's going to grab your attention. And can you believe what happened? This is what I saw here. And that's the stories that travel, not all of the inspiration that is out there in the world, which is why I always love to make sure that my social media is very specific on who I want to follow. So that way I'm exposed to the news and the voices that I want, that's going to talk about eliminating negative beliefs. It's going to talk about how to level up my sales skills. It's going to talk about building my mentality, because I need to expose myself to that news. And I don't think enough people do that. And that is, I think, a big difference on you are what you consume. You are what the experiences that you have. You are who your friends are. And that's the one thing that I think powers proximity, because the environment we've created in SunLife is exactly that. And we are molding people that come from that world, and now we're bringing them into our world. And we are changing lives one at a time, as long as they just stick in to do what it is that we say and follow it as closely as possible. Not saying that every single person will come and be successful, but I would bet that the environment that we have is 99% higher likelihood, with all the resources, mentorship, technology, support and leadership and divisions that we have one of the best places to enter, no matter how you are coming into it, as long as you're willing to be open-minded, listen and learn and implement.
Yeah, I do want to share something that I think is interesting, and I was considering that, and I know that, in the beginning of the podcast, I think you thanked me, which I really, thank you for saying that. But on the flip side of that, we have other partners, obviously, two brilliant people. They probably, they're out in the Philippines right now, traveling the world. And, one of the things that when I spoke to Andrew, one of the things that we were talking about was we were thinking about how are we going to win. This is a challenging market. Everyone cares about red lines. That's all they care about. We're trying to sell the most expensive product. Like, what's to stop people from leaving us and going to other places? There's so much competition. And I said, I think the key to this is we have to create so much value for people that they wouldn't want to go anywhere else, right? I said, how do we create the most amount of value where somebody says, maybe I can make a couple bucks over here, but why would I do that? Why would I give up everything else that I get here just for a couple dollars? When these guys are supporting me in so many ways. And, with Andrew building the technology, but I also want to say, since we joined forces and you came on board here, you've really helped to make that a reality, because it's a passion of yours, like it's a passion of mine. You put so much of yourself into your people. all the time. I mean, it's your passion too, and you've helped make this a reality. You've really helped us to get this team really unified, and getting that vision that we had that I know you shared kind of separately, but we've been able to you've been able to very quickly come in with your vision, and we were able to bring those things together. And that's why, we always talk about, when we tell our people, right, hey, listen, when you're talking about your goals, make sure they're big enough to fit your people, right? If your goals aren't big, if my goal is just to make $100,000 and you're going to work for me, then it's like, well, what's my opportunity? Well, my opportunity is to make maybe 50,000, 40,000. But if your opportunity, if your goals are to build one of the largest nationwide solar companies in America, well, that gives sky's the limit. What we've done is created an environment that's conducive to personal and professional growth, and that's something that I wanted to share, because you've really been an integral part of making that a reality, and we couldn't have done it without you. So,
yeah, I really appreciate
thank you.
it. I couldn't have done it without you, because you're the one that set me up for being able to do it. So one hand helps the other. One thing that a buddy of mine, Steve, had said was a quote. Not sure where he had gotten it from, but it had stuck with me ever since, which is, how do kids spell love? T-I-M-E. Spending time, right? When it comes to kids and parents, and how do you be able to help everybody in your organization? How can you show them that you care? How can you show them that you're going to be there and lead from the front? That's the reason why they call it leadership, right? You are leading the ship. How is it that you can be the one that everyone wants to be working with you, not for you, because that's not the mentality that we have. They work with us because it's a unit, it's a team, and that's how we level each other up. And the beautiful thing is that we are here to invest in each and every one of the people that come in, as long as we see that they're committed. I say that every single time. It's a philosophy that I have. I call it the 100% rule, because I say, when I see that you're 100% 2 feet in, you're going to see more resources from the company than ever before. If I see that you're 1 foot out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, 1 foot in, and you're kind of testing the waters, we're not going to give you the same level of attention and energy, because that is going to go towards the people that are truly committed. No excuses. We have every tool that it is. And the value proposition that you said, I want to just even talk a little bit about that, because it's beyond just who you are hanging out with. And again, rising tides raises all ships, lower tide lowers all ships. So when you're in an environment, when you have 3 is a bad month in solar in our company, right? A good month is like 10 plus. And we have people on pace that will be winning a Golden Door Award and are on that pace right now, that are selling about a deal a day. And power and proximity of who is in your organization, who is setting the pace, but then also the value on the back end on how we have our technology, how we're able to automate through Andrew and running it. He is incredible as an operator in terms of controlling the recruiting flow and having our dialed in processes to say, how many people do we need to hire? And we're having the staff to make sure that we fill those seats for every one of the people that are looking to build teams. Everything from automated commissions, that we are not manually doing anything at all. We have everything from our technology that we've been helping build with our team, and everything at Sunbase, are fantastic team. So happy to be a part of that company. And that is the power of an executive team, and everybody there having a united front in the goals that we accomplish. And that being said, I'm so grateful for what it is that we've helped mold, and the vision that we put in from, at this point, merging and joining forces literally 1 year to this day. And the sky is the limit. And we have grown from last year until now at 600%. And our percentage continues to grow, because we are continuing to bring on top-notch outside individuals that want to be a part of this. In addition, we have people that are getting promoted, it seems like each and every month. And I'm just so excited for what we have coming up in the future of SunLife.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the coolest part about this is that you and I understand that, in order to level up our people, we have to continue to level up, right? If we want to get them to a certain level, then we've got to continue to lead the way, right? We've got to set the example, when it comes to learning and studying, development, implementation, and always going to be the best version of ourselves. And that's where I think really translates is we have this incredible group of people who all understand this idea of if I just put my effort into doing the best that I can, you're literally just like, Jim Quick, who we just saw, you're limitless. You really are. You're really limitless. You have the ability, it doesn't matter where you are in your life. And we have several stories of people who came from nothing, who were literally struggling, selling their own plasma to try to, to try to survive. And now these people are making mid six figures, because they just gave it their all, and they continue to do so every single day. And it's an honor to work with people like that. It really is.
That's what makes it fun. And I'll end with this. We always say it in the leadership on our team. Beyond us, I'm talking all the team leaders and those that are really helping push pace and developing all of the new hires that come in, because we do assign a mentor to each one of them. And they all instill one thing that you just said, which I want to emphasize and how we're going to end this, which is what we do is a lifestyle choice. It is not a job. It is beyond a career. It is our lifestyle. And we embody every little bit of that on, off, hours, doesn't matter, everything in between. And that's what everyone else is starting to adopt within an organization, just from being around everybody that has already adopted those actions. And that's the reason why every one of our people to this date are on pace to make a six-figure income. And that is where we are going to leave off. I'm so excited. This podcast was fire. I hope everyone that is listening had enjoyed it. Thank you, Sean, for being a part of it. And sky is the limit.
All right. Thank you, guys.